So hello and welcome to another episode of Becoming a Jolly Soul podcast. I'm Katie.
And I'm producer Stu.
A place to make your soul feel good. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about this particular quote, which is remind yourself of the goodness in your life, especially on those darker days. Okay, so we all have those dark days, and with this I was talking about those times when you're feeling really overwhelmed. And you know, I think for myself, when I used to feel like that, I used to just sort of jump down a big black hole. That's the best way to describe it. And then like it was like mud was in my eyes and I just could not see anything. Like even if I got that mud out, I could just see this like hazy kind of like detachment from life.
Yeah.
I don't know how do you feel like if you have those dark days? I know you've had them in the past, but
It's pretty much described it the same. Yeah, I think there's no different there. I think everyone has that kind of. Well, I feel
like a blurred vision almost.
Yeah, you can't see anything clearly, and you can't see your way out.
And like I think for myself, I would in those sort of times, I could only see the bad. And I think one thing that I've done to really train myself is be able to, in those moments, I can kind of hear this like little voice almost in the back of my mind going, you don't want to be like, you don't want to let this take you down almost. And I think I had to kind of become aware of that voice. And it's like you have that choice then, don't you, in that moment to either come out of it and start to step away from it or to remain in that moment. And I think when I was really kind of in a bad place for myself, I was just gone. I didn't even hear the voice. There was no voice going, let's get out of it. Mm-hmm. And how I like managed to grow and find that voice and then be able to hear the voice and listen to it and step away was like the want for it. Like that was literally it. So like after a bad day, and I mean this is a long time ago, but I used to be really bad. Like
in what way?
I think it was like at my absolute lowest, I just sometimes I'd get up and I couldn't even face the day and I just had to get back into bed and just not deal with stuff.
Yeah.
I couldn't deal with it. And that was like the worst time. But I'm talking like sometimes it'd be just like a case of like overwhelming stuff and I'd just be like brought to my knees a bit, you know, like I'd just be sort of like, I couldn't deal with anything else. So I'd just like sit down and just be like, this is too much. And I think it was on those days where afterwards I'd feel like so upset with myself that I'd like lose a day to my thoughts. Like I'd just be like, I cannot believe I'd waste my day just because I was like in this like hole.
Headspace of.
Yeah, just a horrible place. And I'd kind of promised myself I wouldn't do it again. And then I'd do it again. And it was just like,
That seems to hurt more as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
It's so weird to think that I could even be that person. Like now, how I live my life and how I am, just to think that I could even get to that, like that kind of darkness. It's just crazy. But it's true, and that's what happened. And, you know, I think if I talk about it, like, I hope that if there is anyone there doing that and feeling like that they realise, or even just having a really rubbish day, because we do have even just moments where we lose ourselves like that. It doesn't have to be that extreme.
No.
But it's like, I think what I recognise is like, how much do I want to live my life in a hole, you know, in my mind? And I think like I used to just be like, right, I'm not doing it again. And I really wanted to be able to recognise that. And also I think like no one's coming to save you. Like, yeah, like obviously there's things like people have spiritual beliefs in God and things like that. And I mean, but the thing is I think like even if you believe in God, like in that moment, have you got the power to save yourself? And if you do, then you'll learn that lesson until you learn that lesson. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So like whether you believe in like a universe or whatever, like even if it's the universe, you know, if you believe in like the law of attraction, if you're in such a dark place, how can anything good come to you? Not like, it's like you're there and you've got to somehow be able to help yourself. And I think even if there's people around you that are talking to you, you still don't take it on board. You just like, that's not the truth of it, because my mind's so strongly in this negative, dark place that how can you then believe anything anyone's saying, because your own thoughts are the truth to you in that moment. So I think it took a long time to be able to realise that I don't want to be in that place. I don't want to get to a point where I'm going to waste an entire day to negativity, negative thoughts, just chilling on the sofa or laying in bed or just not dealing with things. I mean, and that's the extreme version of it. And that's where like it can go to, even if it's not there now. Like, sometimes I'll speak to some of the mums at, say, school, and, you know, they have situations and things, and then they get so upset about it. And it's true. Like, I mean, I can completely relate to a child, your own child, being in like some sort of upset, or someone that you love being in a difficult situation. That is going to be really hard to get through. But I think what you've got to recognize in that moment is that, do you want to be your best self or your worst self in that moment? And I think if you can realize that actually you want to be your best person, then that's where you'll start to deal with it better and you'll show up for yourself. So like, yeah, sorry.
No, it's like you almost become present.
Yeah.
Again.
And that's it. Like, I feel like now, if I do have like any sort of like bad moments or darker times, like I said, it's taken me a long time to do this, but it's more about that voice going, come on. And it's really, really quiet, but I can hear it saying, is this really what you want? Like this, you know, you're making it worse. And I can kind of like almost like self-talk to myself saying, you know, you can sit down and be really overwhelmed. And that's all right too, because I'm not taking away anybody being overwhelmed or being in a bad place, because I think in those dark places too, there's a lot of work to be done. Like, that's what I've realised, and that's what I had to do, is a lot of work to get away from that darkness and realise kind of the things that I wanted to move forward. Like, even as a person, I had to change a lot of stuff so that I could be happy.
You have to dig deep, don't you, then?
Real deep.
You do.
Yeah.
I know we touched on it, but it kind of, in the previous episode about the ego, kind of works alongside that, doesn't it?
Yeah, like your ego's talking to you. So again, if you're not sure about the ego, it's kind of like that, those thoughts, those really strong thoughts that are kind of, it is just thought really, is your ego. But I think it can take hold. But yeah, I mean, I was just saying there, you know, I'd had an overwhelmed moment, and that's where I actually wrote that particular quote. So I remember just feeling like, because everybody's got situations, it can even be something really simple and really small, but just in a moment, it's just like, really, we're quite hedonistic as humans, and we want to be happy. So if you've got so many things to deal with that are just really negative and horrible, or, you know, something is like a parking fine, like, they're annoying, you know, you know what I mean? Like, these things, every little layer of like rubbish that you've got to layer on top can become overwhelming.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I felt really overwhelmed, and I kind of just sat down for a minute, and I just like quietly had a moment with myself, and I looked around at like the things that were good. Like, that is literally the thing that I did in that moment. I just stopped and I thought, right, what is really, really wonderful in my life that I can just focus on, even if it's just for a minute, because I can see myself like going into this like really dark place, and I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it. So that's why I did that. And obviously it's resonated with, you know, people sort of on social media, that particular quote. And I think it's because it literally was my soul speaking. It was like beyond my own self. And it just like flashed through my mind. As soon as I was in the dark sort of spot, I stopped, I started to look at the good stuff. And then that particular quote just like runs straight through my mind. And I was like, right, write that down. And it almost brought me to tears. I was just like, okay, that's the right thing to do, is just to listen to that sort of small thought I want to be in a good place. No matter what I'm dealing with, I'm going to look at everything I can be grateful for. And I hope this inspires you to think about that for yourself. So if you are facing difficulties, or, who do you want to show up as? The first thing you can do is look to goodness. All right, we'll catch you on the next episode.